So, welcome to the Jimmie Thompson Real Estate Interview Series. I'm here with Ron Kuhn today with Summit Funding. Ron and I have been in business together we've done business together for a long time now. I was just telling him how great he is and how much he knows about mortgages, and it's great to have somebody like that on our team. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go over some commonly asked questions about the mortgage industry. Hopefully answer some of those questions for you before you get to that point, and I'm sure we're going to learn a few things today too. So I've written down a few questions here, 10 questions. So first question, Ron, what is most important about getting pre-qualified before a buyer buys a house?
Yeah, good question, Jimmy. You know, at the end of the day, when you're out making offers and you're writing contracts on a transaction, the seller is going to get a chance to review those. And today's marketplace is really, really competitive. And I think as any seller would evaluate purchase contracts in front of them, they're always going to look to the most qualified borrowers. And if I can give a pre-qual form that says I've received tax returns, bank statements, pay stubs, W-2s, I've calculated debt ratios, and that I'm confident I have a plan, a method to get financing for that house for them to purchase, the seller is going to consider those transactions first. So it just makes your offer a stronger offer to the seller, and I think every consumer should do that. Loan application, build the loan file before they ever hit the ground running, because I can frame what they qualify for, I can establish the limits to their abilities, and then nobody's wasting their time.
Right.
Makes them a better buyer.
Okay. So when the buyers are out there, one of the first questions that seems to come to mind is about interest rates. Mm-hmm. Should a buyer shop interest rates?
Absolutely. I think all consumers owe it to themselves to be knowledgeable shoppers. But at the same time, I might add that the low-cost option isn't always the best alternative. Right. You know, we've always heard the train wrecks of the transactions that began with the lenders like Quicken and USAA and any one of the other online offerings. They may be the price leader, but you know what? We save a lot of those deals. The people come to us completely frustrated because they can't even talk to the same person twice. You know, when you come to Summit Funding, you've got myself, my small crew, and you just can't get rid of us. We're going to live with you intimately until that transaction closes. Right. But yeah, shop. You have to. We've got to be held honest and competitive, and we try to maintain that approach.
Okay. So when it comes to documentation, a lot of times my clients are frustrated, but what documentation do you need to have to get a loan?
You know, we set the expectation very high when we begin a loan application. We tell the borrowers that they're making the biggest investment of their life, and that in order to fund those dollars, which could be hundreds of thousands of dollars, we need to get them exposed. But it's nothing that you're not comfortable with. It's going to be tax returns, bank statements, pay stubs, W-2s. We've got to establish that you've got a history of paying your debt on time, and that's through a credit report. We've got to establish you've got stable employment, and that's through bank statements and pay stubs and tax returns. Right. And then we've got to evaluate your income stream. You know, do you work consistently and have a strong level of income coming in on a monthly basis to afford the debt load you want to take in? It's nothing that's out of the ordinary, but it does. You know, the consumers share more with us than they do their mom and dad and brothers and sisters. But it's all held in the strictest of confidence. Right. No one else has access to that information. And when that loan closes, it's literally archived in a sealed file that stays archived until that loan pays off.
Okay, good. So everybody knows about VA loans and how the veterans can qualify for a zero down program that would allow them to get into a house with zero down. Is somebody that is not eligible for that, do you still have zero down programs available?
Yes, and I'll say this in a couple of different ways, because there's different ways to approach and accomplish a low down or a no down transaction. VA, obviously, if you've ever served in the military, you've got the eligibility for 100% financing. If you're purchasing in a remote area, and when I say remote areas, like possibly Coolidge or areas like in Eloy, Arizona City, these are areas that are going to be eligible for USDA financing. Right. And USDA financing is a very, very active program here in the state, and it also allows 100% financing just like VA does. As a matter of fact, in some respects, USDA is a preferred choice even over VA when you're buying in those remote areas, because the fees that the USDA program charges are much less than what the VA program charges. So it's good financing. Now, come into town, come into the Phoenix metro area. Anytime you're within the population of, Phoenix, Tempe, Chandler, Gilbert, all those areas, you're going to be into communities that aren't eligible for USDA financing. And if you don't have VA eligibility, now you've got to look towards some of the down payment assistance programs. And there's many. Every county in Arizona has a down payment assistance program that, with good credit, with strong employment, with reasonable debt ratios, you too could be eligible for some layer of down payment assistance. It could be minimal or it could be large depending on your credit score and your debt ratios. So while it may not be able to be zero down, these county-driven down payment assistance programs are an awesome way to leverage yourself into home ownership. And Jimmy, I got to add, interest rates on these programs are higher than normal programs.
Right.
That's how the counties get their money back. But if you're faced with the option of take a little higher interest rate today to gain access to home ownership as opposed to not buying, sooner is better than later. Get in today, get a write-off, get some equity growth. We can always refinance down the road because this economy too will end someday. It will crash and burn and present people with an opportunity to refinance at lower interest rates. And that's where they want to be ready to capitalize on it. And they've locked in the value of that house and the payment.
Right. And a lot of that, from what you're saying at the end, sounded like a first-time home buyer situation, just to get into something. Are there quote-unquote first-time home buyer programs still today?
In the old days, first-time homebuyer programs were very prevalent. And first off, let's maybe define for everyone what a first-time homebuyer is. It's an individual that hasn't owned a home in the last 3 years. So you can be first-time homebuyer over and over and over again throughout your life if you have not owned a home in the past 3 years. All of the down payment assistance programs that exist today do not have the requirement for first-time homebuyer. So you could be selling your own primary home, buying another one, and still go down payment assistance or minimal dollars down through one of those programs just because they have no requirement. Right. There is one mainstream program that exists, though, outside of the county-driven down payment assistance plans, and it's a 97% conventional loan. That one and only one loan does have a requirement that you be, or someone in that house that's on that mortgage be, a first-time home buyer at close of escrow. Other than that, it's wide open. So don't feel as though that just because you've owned a home in the past and or had credit issues with losing homes through short sales or foreclosures, that would prevent you from participating in any of these down payment assistance programs. They're great.
Okay, good. So to get back to the documentation, why do you require so much documentation?
Well, turn the tables and say you came to me and wanted to borrow $200,000. What would you want to see?
Right.
You'd want to see enough information that can document that I can pay it back to you. That's all the lending community is trying to do. Right. And honestly, every element of the mortgage lending industry today is owned or regulated by the federal government. And you might suggest that anything that the federal government controls is going to be highly regulated. Right. And so it's real specific about what we need and don't need. And honestly, in developing a loan file, while I may ask you for the moon and I may gather all your documentation, the file that we ultimately submit to an underwriter may not include a quarter of those items. But we don't know what we're going to need and what we're not going to need until we build the file, because as you peel back layers of the onion, you find what's important and what's not. And our goal is to submit just what's required to the underwriter for review and nothing more. Right. Because the minute you give them more than they need, it opens up another Pandora's box and more questions. And so we set the expectation up front. I want everything. We gather everything. We help you gather everything. And then we weed through that to pick out what do I need to do to get your loan approved. Because that's my job. Right. My job is to get you approved and into your new house.
Right. So, and if you need it, you need it. And that way you don't have to wait at the last minute to ask for it.
Well, we've all had those relationships with service providers to where today they ask me for 2 things, and tomorrow they ask me for 3 more, and the next day they ask me for 2 more, and the next day they ask me for 1 more. It's exhausting.
Right.
I'd rather give you a comprehensive list day one, have you work on those items, get them to me, and unless there's something odd that gets uncovered in that, I'm done. I'm good, and I can get your loan approved with that, rather than going back over and over and over and sending you back to the well to get more documentation for me.
Okay. Okay, good. So when somebody's out there, a buyer is out there looking for, and they want to interview somebody, I'm going to refer you, but if they happen upon this and that's not an option or whatever, what should they look for in a loan advisor? Or what would you want? What is your title? What do you call yourself?
I do what's called a loan officer.
Loan officer.
I work for a mortgage banking organization who is what they call a seller servicer. Now, when you think about the mortgage industry, that's about the best arena that you can be in. The organization I work for both services loans, which means they collect payments and they manage that loan for over time, as well as they sell loans off into the secondary market to individual investors, as well as Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, and VA. Now, that means that I can gather pricing from many different sources, and as I lock a loan, I lock specific to the best pricing for the day. As a matter of fact, my rate card, when I receive it every morning, shows lender by lender, institution by institution, what their prices are, and it's grouped and sorted so that when I put in a query for locking a loan, it tells me what we call best execution. And it says this is where we're going to lock that loan on this day and ultimately deliver that loan to after closing. Now, I'm not a broker. In a brokerage world, it's something much less than a mortgage banker. In a brokerage world, I am a relationship manager. I gather documents, but I'm not eligible to evaluate, underwrite, close, or fund a loan. I have to gather that information and push it off to some other institution to do that.
Okay.
In a mortgage banker, I'd say it's the only way to go, because I've got the ability to do the entire transaction, and in what we call a post-close fashion. After close, I deliver that loan back to the investor, and if I did my job right, investor buys it. If I didn't do my job right, I own that loan and I live by that loan. I funded it.
Right.
Now you go a little deeper on that, and you begin to look at the banks, Chases, Wells Fargo's, U.S. banks, good solid competitors, but you get one set of pricing and it's theirs.
Ah, gotcha.
It might be good, it might be bad that day, they might be aggressive, they might be conservative. It doesn't give you the best execution. It gives you vanilla, and that's all you get.
So, and you may end up selling your loan
Yeah.
to one of them anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
But you have the best. You have
I have
all the
choice.
choices.
I have the choices.
Instead of the one.
We deliver to U.S. Bank, to Wells Fargo, to Bank of America, to all the different investors that are out there, and you will find that some days they're aggressive, and some days they're not. So it just depends on what mandate corporates run down. But I can tell you, on the open market, there's always somebody that's hungry for loans. We find them, and that's where we lock our loans at.
Oh, there you go. Good. That's good information. So to get back to the original question, I sort of asked you too. What do we look for when we're out there looking for?
Good lender?
Yeah, for a good lender.
It's much about relationship, and some of that relationship is your and I relationship, because we've got synergies going to where I know your expectations, you know my expectations, and we can manage the borrowers, the consumers' expectations better than if it's disjointed. If you don't know me, I don't know you, I don't know how you put together your transactions. That could become problematic. And or you've got a loan officer that's in another state or another country, even worse. Or you can't
Other countries?
other countries, or you can't get a hold of the same person twice.
Right.
It's problematic. And so first off, I'd always take your realtor's recommendation. That would be number one. Now, if it's just a disconnect, if the chemistry isn't right, you're all going to know it. And if that happens, it's best to move on, get another relationship. I'm sure you have more than one lender you deal with as well. And that's completely reasonable. But if the relationship, if the chemistry, if the referral works good, it's always going to provide a much more customer-centric closing at the end of the day, because it'll have symmetry, it'll be smooth and on time.
Gotcha. Good. So you've already we covered one of these questions, but it was there about the bank versus a mortgage company.
Mm-hmm.
But so, do you have any further things that you would add that we didn't talk about? Maybe how to how much down, how much a month, how to.
Yes, absolutely. You know, everybody, 100% of everybody that comes to me, no matter how strong or how weak they feel in their heart that their financial condition is, they're worried about three main things. How much is the down payment? What do I need out of my pocket? What's the monthly payment going to be? And the confidence of knowing they can do what they want to do. You know, that their credit's going to be strong enough. It's kind of like, you know, while everybody knows credit reporting systems are out there, they really don't know what's on their credit report. And so we pull that thing. And sometimes it's embarrassing. Sometimes debts show up that they don't want to disclose to you. Sometimes there's slow payments or judgments or collections. You know, I think at the end of the day that everyone's got to feel comfortable with the idea that while they're exposed, it's all in an element to build or all in an effort to build a plan. You know, we want to craft a plan. So even a consumer that may have anxieties about credit or job instability or how much money they have in the bank, my gosh, come see us. Let's develop a plan. While we may not be able to get you into a home today, we might be able to get you into one 6 months or a year from now. All you have to do is follow some good financial advice, and we'll make you a homeowner sometime soon.
There you go. So what's the best way to get a hold of you, Ron?
I have a team line. My team's called Ron and the A-Team, which is fun. The phone number is easy to remember. It's 480-PREQUAL, 773-7825. And if you dial 480-PREQUAL, you'll find myself or one of the team members that will either answer the phone or respond. And we staff our offices Monday through Friday from 8:30 in the morning till 8 o'clock at night, and on Saturdays and Sundays from noon till 5. So don't feel like after hours or weekends a problem. We're here to serve and here to be your chosen lender.
Right. So you're there on the weekends.
We are.
We are on the weekends too. So it's okay to call.
It's okay to call.
Okay. I get that sometimes. People are like, I don't want to bother you on the weekend.
Call us.
Hey, that's what we're there for. So, Ron, thanks for taking the time today. If you have any other questions regarding mortgage, regarding anything in the, as far as listing, buying a home, that's what we're here for. Hopefully this information was helpful for you today, and you know how to reach us if you'd like to get some more information. Thanks for seeing us.
Thank you, Jimmy. Appreciate it.
Thank you.